from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka. Hello and good evening and a warm welcome to the news live on Rupavahini. Bringing you your stories for today is Lakshita Edrisinga and I'm Shram Masquinius. First, it's a look at the day's headlines.
Cabinet approval for a budget based on finances and economic stabilization and national policies. The hearing of the petitions filed challenging the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution concludes. Decision to be conveyed to the Speaker. Fuel quota for essential services increases. Purchasing of 1,762 metric tons of paddy completes. Another 125,000 metric tons of urea for Maha season. Bangladesh revises the times of schools and officers amidst an electricity crisis.
On to the main story for today. Cabinet approval has been granted to prepare the budget estimations for 2023 based on zero-based budgeting. The relevant resolution was furnished by President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
Cabinet spokesman Minister Bandulu Gunawardena said that state finance imbalance resulting from the decline of government revenue in the long run and the escalation of government expenditure has now developed into an extreme economic crisis. The minister said that state corporations, businesses and statutory bodies require to be restructured to prevent any further financial losses. He said that the state revenue from taxation amounted at 1,298 billion rupees, while the salary payments for state sector employees and the pensions were amounted at 1,115 billion rupees. Accordingly, he said that the country has to make interest payments for foreign loans, which amounts to 16 billion. He added that none of the governments would be able to make payments for the main two state expenditures with their revenue earnings at present. Therefore, he said that the country faces a daily loss of 6,000 million rupees with the present state revenues and expenditures. Accordingly, he said that the preparation of the budget for the year 2023 will be carried out with prudent and strategic means, while measures will be taken to prevent more intensity and lay the foundation to future sustainability. Responding to a query raised by a journalist, Minister Gunawardena said that there is a compensation mechanism in state corporations and statutory bodies. Accordingly, he said that employees will be laid off with compensations. He also said that employees were laid off previously from state media institutions under this mechanism. However, he said that with political influence, the reduced number of employments has been refilled with new recruitments. He emphasized that such moves will not be tolerated henceforth. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to provide a grace period until the 15th of September to deposit and exchange foreign currency into rupees through formal banking systems. More information can be obtained from www.dfp.lk. Minister Gunawardena said that any individual will be able to open an account in commercial banks or National Savings Bank and deposit their foreign currency or exchange foreign currencies for rupees without any inquiry. He said that this facility will remain available until the 15th of September. He said that this is a one-time opportunity, and if any individual, including visa holders, PR holders or residents, has foreign currency, then they are encouraged to deposit or exchange their foreign currency. The minister said that the program to provide a subsidy on kerosene for the people affected from the recent price hike will be initiated in the future.
On to another leading story. The Central Bank Governor of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Weerasinghe, says the International Monetary Fund's disbursement of the extended fund facility for the country can be expected by the end of this year.
He also made remarks over the inflation in Sri Lanka, monetary policy and the country's domestic debt in an exclusive interview with Bloomberg World News Agency recently.
අයෙක් ළඟ විදේශ විවාද
The International Monetary Staff team will commence discussions with the Sri Lankan authorities on economic and financial reforms and policies from tomorrow. The IMF team will arrive in Sri Lanka in 2 batches tonight and tomorrow morning. The team will be led by previous mission heads in June this year. Peter Brower and Masahiro Nozaki will lead the negotiations. The objective is to make progress towards reaching a staff-level agreement on a prospective IMF extended fund facility arrangement in the near term. With Sri Lanka's public debt being assessed as unsustainable, approval by the IMF Executive Board of the EFF program would require adequate assurances by Sri Lanka's creditors that debt sustainability will be restored, the IMF said. IMF staff would also continue the engagement with other stakeholders during the visit, as per the IMF statement issued on last Friday.
Sri Lanka ranks 5th among the countries with the highest food price inflation in the world. According to the World Bank's latest assessment, Sri Lanka's agricultural production has decreased by 40 to 50% due to the shortage of fertilizers. He said that there is a shortage of foreign exchange to buy food imports. World Bank data indicates Lebanon leading the list, followed by Zimbabwe, Venezuela and Turkey ahead of Sri Lanka, while Iran, Argentina and Ethiopia and Moldova ranked behind Sri Lanka. The World Bank report noted that domestic food price inflation remains high around the world. Information from between April and July 2022 shows high inflation in almost all low and middle income countries. In 92.9% of low-income countries, 92.7% for low-middle-income countries, 89% of the upper-income or upper-middle-income countries have seen inflation levels above 5%, with many experiencing double-digit inflation. The share of high-income countries with high inflation has also increased sharply, with about 83.3% experiencing high food price inflation. The war in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions and continued economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic are reversing years of development gains and pushing food prices to all-time highs.
Now, in the meantime, Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to implement the proposed information and cyber protection policy in relation to the government institutions. The resolution was submitted by President Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Minister of Technology. It is compulsory to implement this policy by all the state institutions defined as the competent authority in the Right to Information Act No. 12 of 2016. A proposal has been made to sign a memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries Resources and Water Resources of Oman and the Ministry of Agriculture in relation to the agriculture sector cooperation. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the resolution furnished by Minister Mahinda Amaravira to sign the aforementioned memorandum of understanding. The Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval for the recommendations made by the Committee to review the responsibility limitations of the Carriage by Air Act No. 29 of 2018 to amend several sections of the Act. Approval of the Cabinet of Ministers has been granted at the meeting of the Cabinet of Ministers held on the 19th of April 2021 to establish a rehabilitation bureau in order to perform treatment, rehabilitation, post-protection and related activities in relation to drug addicts, insurgents, violent extremist groups. The Cabinet granted approval submitted by Minister Wijayadasa Rajapaksa to publish the aforementioned draft bill in the Government Gazette notification and thereby submit it to the Parliament for approval. The Cabinet approved the proposal to provide a financial provision of a maximum of 10,000 rupees per month to a trainee in addition to the allowance currently being paid through a state bank on subsidized interest basis. The proposal was furnished by Minister Susil Premajayantha. The government of Sri Lanka made a request to the government of China to provide the uniform material for students for 2023. Accordingly, an agreement was reached to provide a part of the uniform requirements as a grant. A 3-watt Power Management Limited has been recommended as the most suitable investor or rather 3W Power Management Limited, has been recommended as the most suitable investor to execute the project to use the land on which the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation Shortwave Transmission Centre located in Kultraveli Divisional Secretariat for a solar power project. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by Minister Bandula Gunawardena to implement this project. The procurement process of urea fertilizer for the Maha season has been implemented. Accordingly, 150,000 metric tons of urea are planned to be produced. However, the bidder recommended by the Standing Procurement Committee has bid to supply only 12,500 metric tons of urea. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal made by Minister Mahinda Maravira to award the contract for the purchase of that stock of urea and to call for bids again following the electronic procurement method for the immediate purchase of another 125,000 tons of urea fertilizer. It has been proposed to sign a memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Heritage and Tourism of Oman regarding cooperation in the field of tourism. Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal presented by the Minister of Tourism and Lands to sign the MOU accordingly. The hearing of the petitions filed with the Supreme Court challenging the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution presented to the Parliament by the government concluded today.
The Supreme Court announced today that the final decision in this regard will be directed to the Speaker. 10 petitions were filed challenging the relevant draft bill. The Attorney General was named as the respondent. The second day of the hearing was conducted before a 3-member Supreme Court judge bench comprised of Chief Justices Jayantha Jayasuriya, Justices Bhuvanika Aluhare and Arjuna Ubesekara. After considering the submissions made by both the parties, the hearing was conducted by ordering the petitioners to submit any written submissions related to the case by tomorrow. The 3-member judge bench also ordered the Attorney General to submit written submissions to the courts by day after. Attorney General and the President's Counsel Sanjay Rajaratnam pointed out that the sovereign power of the people has expanded due to certain amendments made to the Constitution. The Attorney General further pointed out that the revision made by the Constitution citing that the President should be responsible to the Parliament is one of such amendments. The Attorney General said that such amendments would not limit the executive powers vested with the President, but the executive power will be further balanced. Meanwhile, the Attorney General submitted a document consisted of 3 proposed amendments expected to be introduced to the draft bill during the committee-level debate in Parliament in the open court. The Attorney General emphasised that the proposed draft bill will not be consistent of any prejudicial provision which would hinder the sovereign power of the people, but the provisions will further expand the sovereign rights of the people.
People's Remittance இடமிருந்து நாளாந்தம் 10,000 ரூபாய், வாராந்தம் பெறுமதியான தங்க பவுன், மாதாந்தம் 1 மில்லியன் ரூபாவுடன் வருட இறுதி மாபெரும் சீட்டிழப்பில் 1 கோடி ரூபாய். நீங்கள் வெளிநாட்டிலிருந்து மக்கள் வங்கியினூடாக பணம் அனுப்பும் போது பரிசு குவியல். People's Remittance, கோடி அதிர்ஷ்டம், அனுப்பவும் வெல்லவும்.
முருகன் முருகன் முத்தமிழ் குமரன் முன்னே வந்தான் மூவிருவதனன். முருகன் முருகன் முத்தமிழ் குமரன் முன்னே வந்தான் மூவிருவதனன். கந்தன் கந்தன் கருணை வள்ளல் கலியுக வரதன் கார்த்திகை குமரன். கந்தன் கந்தன் கருணை வள்ளல்.
அந்த காலத்துல ஸ்கூல் பஸ் மேன் என்ன ஃபேஸ் பண்ணவே பயப்படுவாங்க. சரியா உங்களை போல நீங்க தான் என்னோட ஹீரோ. உங்க ரெக்கார்டை பிரேக் பண்றதுதான் என்னோட கனவே. ஆனா அந்த கனவு என்கிட்ட கொஞ்ச நேரம் இருந்துட்டு டேர்ன் ஆயிடுச்சு.
எந்த ஒரு வீரனையும் அழித்திட போதைப் பொருட்களால் முடியும். இது ஒரு மாயை, ஏமாந்து போக வேண்டாம். புதிய வாழ்க்கையை துவங்கிவிடும்.
உங்களுக்குள் இருக்கும் வீரனை அழிக்க போதைப் பொருட்களுக்கு இடம் கொடுக்காதீர்கள். போதைப் பொருட்கள் அற்றதோர் நாடு. tobacco has taken many lives. Don't let it destroy yours.
Welcome back as we take a look at more stories from home. President of the Republic of Armenia, Vahan Kachaturian, extended his best wishes to the newly appointed President of Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe. In a congratulatory message to the President, the Armenian head of state said he stands ready to further strengthen and deepen cooperation between Armenia and Sri Lanka for the benefit of the people of both countries. President Kachaturian also wished President Wickremesinghe good health and success and peace and well-being to the friendly people of Sri Lanka.
A meeting took place between President Ranil Wickremesinghe and the Inspector General of Police C.D. Vikramaratne at the President's office this afternoon. This customary meeting was held after the President Ranil Wickremesinghe assumed office as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Security Forces. Mementos were also exchanged during the meeting. Minister Kanchana Wijesekara says the special category for quota additions for special essential services is expected to introduce to the QR system. The minister made these remarks in a tweet today.
The National Fuel Pass Review meeting was held online this morning. Comparing the data obtained in the last 3 weeks, it has been observed that the number of vehicle registrations and the number of vehicles who had received fuel have increased, but a decline has been observed in fuel usage. The minister in his tweet has mentioned that non-vehicle fuel requirement registration and tourist fuel pass will be made available from the first week of September. Ceylon Petroleum Private Tank Owners Association has said that the fuel consumption and fuel purchasing have dropped considerably. Minister Nalin Fernandes said that the aim of the government is to safeguard both the producers as well as the consumers. He made these remarks during a meeting held yesterday with the officials of the Egg Producers Association.
Minister Kanchana Wijesekara says that the second Ural crude oil cargo expected to arrive later today. Minister Wijesekara made these remarks in a tweet while issuing the full update. In a Twitter message, Minister said that 30,000 metric tons of super diesel expected to be unloaded tomorrow. He also said that auto diesel cargo expected to arrive between August 25th and 26th. He further said that the petrol 92 cargo will arrive in the country on the 27th and 29th. Meanwhile, the minister also said that kerosene and jet fuel distributions commenced from yesterday.
Chairman of Paddy Marketing Board, Neil D. Alvis, says that the board has purchased 1,762 metric tons of paddy from farmers from the 17th of August until now. Paddy storage warehouses in 16 districts are open at present for purchasing activities. Paddy Marketing Board purchases a kilogram of Nadu paddy at a rate of 120 rupees. A kilogram of Samba paddy is purchased at a rate of 125 rupees, while a kilogram of Kiri Samba paddy will be purchased at a rate of 130 rupees. Expected paddy harvest quantity to be purchased from farmers under the first phase is 3,000 metric tons.
Central Bank Governor of Sri Lanka, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe, says that the International Monetary Fund disbursement of the extended fund facility for the country can be expected by the end of this year. He also made these remarks over inflation in Sri Lanka monetary policy and the country's domestic debt in an exclusive interview with Bloomberg World News Agency recently. We're ready to bring you the visuals now.
Very, very simple question. Are you done hiking interest rates? Yeah, I think what I can say compared to the last monetary policy cycle that we made the decision to now, we are seeing some of the improvements in terms of inflation expectations and future inflation path. Earlier, we thought inflation would go above 70% and remain at that elevated level until December. But the latest projection that we are seeing, inflation is basically trending down. It will be peaking somewhere in September, but it won't be touching in our predictions below beyond 70%. And also in terms of other indicators, in terms of monetary expansion is slowing down, prices are settling down, exchange rate is stabilizing, and also the kind of inflation expectation, as I mentioned earlier, all are in the positive direction compared to last cycle. This is the reason why we decided to maintain the same high interest rates compared to the inflation. But going forward, we will be closely monitoring. We hope that situation, in fact, both supply side and demand side, in terms of supply side issues that we had shortage of fuel, gas, all have been settling down. There's no shortage of availability of essential items. And on the demand side also, we see indication of contracting the demand more than what we expected. So we took that decision in the going forward in the next cycle. We will continue to monitor the situation, and if we think things are moving in the right direction, we probably take a different decision at that time. But I can see situation is much more stabilizing than what we expected earlier.
Governor, then do I take it that the preference, and we'll see what the data shows us eventually, but the preference is for the next move to be a rate cut? Is that accurate?
I don't think I can make that statement now. Only thing is that if we think inflation is trending down sharply, obviously, then we can look at that point. Still, it's a bit, we had to look at a lot of data. Without that, I don't think I can comment whether it will be cutting down or maintaining stable or increasing. I think that is a decision we have to make at that point.
Governor, there was a risk that inflation in Sri Lanka could touch 70%. Is that no longer a risk for you?
Yeah, in fact, in our projections, we see inflation will be moving below 70% even after the adjustment of electricity prices that was introduced by the government last week. We have incorporated the impact of the energy price rise as well. With that, with the supply chain issues easing and also demand side is easing, we are not going to see in our predictions inflation won't touch 70% going forward, and also it will be peaking somewhere in September compared to earlier we thought it would be peaking somewhere later. So that's a clearly different and much better disinflation path that we see going forward as far as our prediction is concerned now.
Governor, the focus is also on Sri Lanka's debt. We have the IMF visiting Sri Lanka for talks next week. Can you give the IMF assurances that Sri Lanka's debt is sustainable without restructuring domestic debt?
This is exactly what we are discussing with the IMF. First part is to reach a staff-level agreement on the overall macro fiscal policy framework for next 3-4 years and the medium-term framework that we are coming closer to reaching agreement on a macro fiscal framework. The second part for us is to agree and negotiate with the debt targets that for us to make our medium to long-term debt sustainable. We are in the process of having this discussion. Only after that we can say where the debt targets we have to meet. We are basically discussing with the IMF. We are hoping to reach that agreement also. Then only we will approach the creditors. In terms of domestic debt restructuring, our position, as I mentioned earlier, that remains as we announced on 12th of April. We would like to restructure only external debt. And if we touch domestic debt, in our view, that will have a significant impact on our banking sector. That will not help even the external creditors in terms of recovery of the economy. We need to have a stable banking system. That is why our position, as we announced earlier, remains that this is a balance of payment crisis. We would want to restructure external debt because of the balance of payment situation and our ability to meet external debt service payments. We don't see a problem with us meeting the domestic debt targets. So this is why we think we can manage that situation without touching domestic debt, that as a position we announced even earlier on 12th of April.
Governor, if all goes to plan, realistically, when do you think the country will get that funding?
So this is where we think, for example, now once we reach the start of agreement, then the timeline is that then we have to approach all our external creditors and start negotiating and discussing in good faith for us to obtain a relief on the discharge payments. So therefore that we need what they call financial assurance from our external creditors. We think next about 3-4 months. So hopefully, if all goes well, if all external creditors are cooperating with the Sri Lankan government debt management strategy, then hoping that we would be able to reaching getting financial assurance somewhere in December, so that the IMF can submit our paper to the executive board so that they can start disbursing the extended fund facility towards end of this year. That is our timeline that we would like to basically implement. That all depends on how we got the support from the external creditors and how negotiation process going on. So this uncertainty is there. So hopefully that we all will be supporting us.
The first committee meeting of the Committee of Public Finance for the third session of the 9th Parliament was held today. The meeting was held under the chairmanship of Parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva.
In accordance with the Standing Order 121, the Committee of Selection appointed Member of Parliament Dr. Harsha De Silva as the chairman of the committee recently. Accordingly, the Appropriation Amendment Bill to amend the Appropriation Act No. 30 of 2021 was considered at the committee and approved. Furthermore, the Social Security Contribution Levy Bill was also approved. Regulations under the Foreign Exchange Act No. 12 of 2017, Order under the Special Commodity Levy Act No. 48 of 2007, and a resolution under the Customs Ordinance Chapter 235 also received approval of the Committee on Public Finance.
The Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, in a letter to the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, recommends that the government of Sri Lanka should provide adequate protection to the former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa upon his return to the country whenever he makes such a request. Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka has indicated that several complainants have been received alleging that former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa had tendered his resignation under threat and coercion. The Commission has further indicated the government has failed to provide adequate security to Gotabaya Rajapaksa during this period. The complaints were based on the premise that the ex-president and family cannot return to the country due to the prevailing threats they face, and that it violates fundamental rights guaranteed under the Constitution for every citizen. In a letter to the President, the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka has also observed that the ex-president Gotabaya Rajapaksa is entitled to certain privileges and benefits as a former head of state established under law. The Commission recommended that the government provide adequate protection to the family of the former president to return to the country. The Commission has also recommended that the government of Sri Lanka to take all necessary steps to assess the threat situation and take all reasonable and appropriate means to prevent such infringement within the framework of the law of Sri Lanka and permit their safe return to the country.
Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena emphasizes the need for the country to be self-sufficient in order to overcome the prevailing crisis. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said that their stance from the past was to create a self-sufficient country. He said that all should rally together, including President Ranil Wickremesinghe and him as the Prime Minister, to create a self-sufficient country and rebuild the nation following the crisis.
මමත් ඒ වගේම සියලු දෙනා අත්වල බැඳගෙන මේක මුල් මහත් ජාතික එකමුතුවේ අභියෝගයේ ජය ගන්න පුළුවන් අවස්ථාව ලෙස සලකලා කටයුතු කරන්න වැඩපිළිවෙල අධ්‍යයන සකසා තිබෙනවා.
The Prime Minister made these remarks to the media following an almsgiving event held to invoke merit for late Venerable Maduluave Sobita Thera and donated food for the people affected in Kotte area.
The Colombo Association says with the correct decisions taken, the economy of the country is returning to normalcy. These remarks were shared during a media briefing held in Colombo today. And moving on to another interesting segment, which is about one of my favorite beaches in Sri Lanka. Amongst the best emerging beaches for tourism in the world, Pasikuda Beach continues to attract foreign tourists despite the ongoing economic crisis in the country. Pasikuda Beach recognized as one of the safest beaches in Sri Lanka, and it's famous among the travelers who travel around the Sri Lankan tourism area. It's a place you don't want to miss. Known for its sun-kissed beaches, one of the best seaside areas to visit when the eastern coast is Pasikuda Beach. Throughout the year, Pasikuda Beach is fully crowded with travelers from around the world. The sea is visualized with crystal clear water. Foreign travelers never miss a visit to the beach, and it is known as the ideal destination for a sea bath. The beach is a memorable opportunity for foreign tourists from the West to enjoy their holidays in the eastern coast of Sri Lanka.
So I'm Rebecca. I'm from the UK. I'm currently living at Earth in Sri Lanka on the beautiful beach on the east coast in Pasikuda. I'm just staying at the Calm Resort in Pasikuda at the moment. Absolutely beautiful pool, absolutely gorgeous sandy beach. Oh, and the sun is coming out right now as well. Yeah, I'm having the best time ever. Don't get me wrong, you know, I'm very aware that, you know, there's kind of issues in the country, but I've never felt unsafe. The people there are honestly what makes this country amazing. So this is my fourth trip to Sri Lanka, and honestly, I don't know, the experience that I'm having is just very, very similar to the experiences that I had in the past few years. And yeah, so I'm currently on the beach in Pasikuda on the east coast, having an absolute ball, feeling very, very relaxed, you know, just about to see the sunset as well, which is rather lovely. But yeah, we've just come from the Knuckles mountain range, and we've had an amazing time meeting all of the locals and doing lots of hikes, kind of surrounded by all of the incredible mountains, seeing the colourful tea pickers in the tea plantations, which was amazing. Next, we're off to Galoya National Park, so a real little hidden gem in Sri Lanka. We're going to meet the indigenous Veda tribe, which will be incredible, go on a jeep safari, hopefully see lots of elephants as well, spending some time in Galle, and we actually started our trip with Kandy as well, which is, it just has incredible food, super, super cultural, and yeah, the people have just been really, really welcoming, really friendly, so yeah, I think it's pretty much like the time to come. You know, it's pretty evident that now is the time, you know, to come to Sri Lanka and actually support their local economy as well, you know, because they need it, and, you know, quite frankly, they deserve it because they are so welcoming and the country is so beautiful. And yeah, I'm just having a ball right now.
Hello, my name is Damian Zamfir. I come from Romania. Came with a nice group of friends of 45 people. For me, it's the first time in Sri Lanka, but I need to mention that I had the opportunity to meet in 1 week an absolutely beautiful country, beautiful people, fantastic nature. It definitely the attention to details that all the people here have for the beach, for the surroundings. Every morning, in one of the evenings, it was raining, and next day in the morning, everything was on place, just as nothing happened the evening before. So, yeah, what can I say? Just more than excellent. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Definitely we will come back next time.
Hello, I'm Elena. I'm from Romania, and I choose Sri Lanka and the Calm Resort Spa because it's a safe place in the context of the pandemics. Here we have beautiful people, very good food, and all the places are very, very safe.
I come here in Sri Lanka. It's a nice, very, very beautiful country. I like here all. Personally, are very friendly. nice people, very nice people. I love you. And I come here in this year, in August maybe. Bye.
The launching of the second edition of the National Media Communications textbook was held today.
The Mass Media Research Division of the Government Information Department launched the book with the intention to create a quality mass media culture and a knowledgeable population. The first copy of the book was presented to Minister Bandula Gunawardena by Chief Editor of the book, Professor Sri Ranjan. The event was held at the Mass Media Ministry Auditorium. The textbook has been composed together with the University Communication Studies Division with the aim to create a platform to debate on mass media subject. Ministry Secretary Anusha Palpita, Director General of Government Information Mohan Samaranayaka, editors of the book Professors Tudor Veerasinghe and Kamal Velaboda, as well as senior lecturers Aruna Lokuliyana, Kalyani Vijay Sundara and Attorney at Law Kalani Irosha Dharmasiri were present at this occasion. Meanwhile, a meeting between Minister Bandula Gunawardena and heads of media institutions was held today. The meeting was held to discuss on operations and financial situations of the institutions.
And on foreign news now, Bangladesh will close schools for one more day each week and reduce office hours to ease an electricity shortage, a government official says.
Last month, the South Asian nation started daily 2-hour power cuts. Protesters have taken to the streets in recent weeks after the government raised petrol prices by more than 50%. The war in Ukraine has driven up the cost of importing fuel and taken a toll on Bangladesh's economy and foreign currency reserves. Bangladesh officials said that schools which were previously only closed on Fridays would now also be shut on Saturdays.
On our sports news tonight, now the Sri Lanka squad will leave to the United Arab Emirates tomorrow evening to play for the Asia Cup tournament. The tournament commences on the 27th of August.
The Sri Lankan squad scheduled to take part in the tournament engaged in their final training session yesterday at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo. Sri Lanka is expected to compete in Group B against Bangladesh and Afghanistan. Sri Lanka's first match will be against Afghanistan on the 27th and Sri Lanka will face Bangladesh on the 1st of September. A 17-player squad led by Captain Dasun Shanaka will leave the country tomorrow. Dinesh Chandimal, Nuanidu Fernando and Nuan Tushara have been called into the side as reserve players.
We'd like to wish the cricket squad all the very best for the tournament. And with that, we wrap up tonight's news bulletin. Thanks a lot for joining us. Take care.
Good night.